You've done everything right. Rich soil, plenty of water, and your strawberry plants look stunning. But instead of sweet red strawberries, all you're getting are thick leaves and endless runners. Frustrating, right? The good news is, this isn't random. It's fixable. So in this video, we'll go through all the 11 reasons why your plants are making leaves instead of fruit. And I'll also give you a bonus tip at the end that will keep your strawberry patch young and productive for years to come, while also preventing diseases and bringing back big, juicy harvests. But I'll only tell you that if you stick around with me to the end. One of the most common reasons for leafy strawberry plants without fruit is too much nitrogen in the soil. Nitrogen is what drives leafy green growth, and when plants have more than they need, they use that energy to make lush foliage and runners instead of blooms and berries. The result is a patch of beautiful, healthy-looking plants that never seem to produce much fruit. This problem often happens when gardeners apply too much general-purpose fertilizer or add compost or manure too frequently. Those materials are packed with nitrogen, and while they make the plants look vibrant, they disrupt the balance strawberries need to flower. You might notice your plants growing quickly early in the season, spreading fast, and creating thick crowns, but very few blossoms. That is a sign of nitrogen overload. The best way to fix this is to rebalance your fertilizer plan. Start by testing your soil. You can buy an inexpensive home test kit or send a sample to your local extension service. Once you know your nutrient levels, choose a fertilizer that is low in nitrogen but higher in phosphorus and potassium. These two nutrients are what promote strong roots and abundant flowering. A good rule of thumb is to look for a fertilizer with a lower first number on the NPK label, such as 5 or 1010. That lower nitrogen number helps shift the plant's focus from growing leaves to setting fruit. Apply it lightly during the growing season according to the package directions, and never add extra just because the plants look hungry. Too much feeding can undo your progress. If your soil is already rich in organic matter, you may not need fertilizer at all until the plants begin flowering. Let the existing nutrients carry them through early growth. Then, once you see buds forming, give a small dose of balanced or phosphorus-rich feed to encourage fruiting. With a few weeks of balanced nutrition, you should start to notice fewer runners and more flower clusters forming. That is your signal that the plants are back on track, using their energy for berries instead of leaves. Sometimes the problem isn't too much nitrogen, but the opposite. When key nutrients like phosphorus, potassium, or micronutrients are missing or out of balance, your strawberry plants may still look healthy on the surface, but fail to produce good fruit. Leaves. Keep growing because the plant is focused on survival, not reproduction. Without enough of the right nutrients, it simply doesn't have the energy to make flowers or berries. Phosphorus is the nutrient that drives flower and root development, while potassium supports fruit formation and overall plant health. If either one is lacking, strawberry plants end up with plenty of foliage, but very few blossoms. You might also notice dull, slightly bluish leaves or weak flower stems that never seem to mature. These are signs that your plants need a nutritional adjustment. To fix this, start by doing a soil test. It will tell you exactly what nutrients are low and what might be in excess. This is especially important if you've been fertilizing regularly, since overusing one nutrient can block others from being absorbed. For example, too much nitrogen or calcium can make phosphorus harder for the roots to take up. Once you know what your soil needs, use a fertilizer designed for fruiting plants, not leafy vegetables. Look for labels that emphasize flower and fruit growth, usually with higher phosphorus and potassium levels. You can also add organic sources like bone meal or kelp meal, which release nutrients slowly and improve soil structure at the same time. If you garden in containers, remember that nutrients wash out faster with frequent watering. A light liquid feed every couple of weeks during the flowering and fruiting stages can help keep potted strawberries balanced. But again, less is often more. It's better to feed lightly and consistently than to overdo it all at once. Over time, you'll notice that balanced feeding creates sturdier plants with more flower clusters and larger, better-tasting strawberries. Once the plant has the nutrients it needs, it naturally redirects energy away from constant leaf production and toward making fruit. Now, if you're finding this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more gardeners like yourself, who would also find it so helpful to avoid these mistakes. All right, let's keep going. Strawberries like slightly acidic soil. The sweet spot is a pH between 5.5 and 6.5. When soil is outside that range, plants can look leafy but still fail to set fruit well. This happens because nutrients get locked up. Even if you fertilize, the roots cannot absorb what they need, especially phosphorus and important micronutrients. The plant keeps pushing leaves, but flowers stay small or drop early. Many yards sit on soil that is naturally too alkaline. That means a pH above 7. Limestone in the area, older concrete nearby, or heavy use of tap water with high alkalinity can all push pH up over time. On the flip side, peat-heavy mixes and repeated use of acidifying fertilizers can make container soil too acidic. In both cases, the result is the same. The plant struggles to use nutrients, and you get more leaves than berries. Start with a test. A simple home pH kit or digital meter can give you a good reading. For the most accurate result, collect soil from a few spots in the bed and mix them before testing. If you garden in containers, test the potting mix as well. Knowing your starting point helps you make the right correction. If pH is too high, your goal is to lower it gently. Elemental sulfur is a common choice. Work it into the top few inches around the plants in the off-season, or lightly side dress if plants are actively growing. Follow package directions and be patient. Changes take weeks, and you do not want to overcorrect. Organic mulches like pine needles or shredded leaves can also nudge soil slightly more acidic over time. If pH is too low, raise it with garden lime. Use dolomitic lime if your soil test also shows low magnesium. Again, apply modestly, water it in, and give it time to work. For containers, repotting into a fresh, well-draining mix that is designed for berries or acid-loving plants can bring pH back into range quickly. Retest a few weeks after any adjustment. Aim to stay in the 5.5 to 6.5 window through the season. Once pH is in range, fertilizers work as intended, roots take up nutrients efficiently, and plants shift energy into blossoms and fruit. The payoff is more flowers that hold and a much bigger harvest. If your strawberry plants are new, they may simply not be ready to produce much fruit yet. Young plants spend their first season building strong root systems and crowns, which are the heart of the plant. This is especially true for June-bearing varieties, which focus on establishing themselves in year one before giving a big harvest the following summer. You might see a few flowers or even some tiny berries, but the plant's main goal at this stage is survival and growth, not production. It can be disappointing, especially when you've tended the plants carefully and expected a basket full of berries. But patience pays off. By allowing the plant to mature properly, you set it up for years of bigger, sweeter harvests. If you force young plants to fruit too early, it can actually weaken them and reduce their long-term potential. The best thing to do in the first year, particularly with June bearers, is to pinch off the first few rounds of flowers as they appear. It might feel wrong to remove blossoms, but this redirects the plant's energy into strengthening its roots and crown instead of producing a few small berries. The stronger the base becomes, the more fruit it can support in later seasons. For ever-bearing or day-neutral varieties which produce multiple flushes of fruit per year, you might still get a small harvest in year one. Even so, keeping expectations realistic is important. The first season is about building a foundation, and full production typically begins in the second or even third year. You can help young plants along by providing consistent moisture, good soil structure, and balanced nutrients. Avoid heavy fertilization early on, since too much nitrogen can push even more leaf growth at the expense of strong roots. A light feeding of balanced fertilizer after the first few weeks of planting is usually enough. If you care for the plants properly through their first growing season, the difference by year 2 can be dramatic. Crowns will be thicker, flower clusters will be stronger, and the berry count will increase sharply. So if your young plants are mostly leaves right now, take it as a good sign. They're preparing for the heavy fruiting ahead. Another reason your strawberries might grow lots of leaves but very little fruit is overcrowding. As strawberry plants mature, they naturally send out runners that form baby plants. At first, this seems like a blessing, more plants for free. But over time, those runners can take over the bed, packing the area so tightly that each plant has to fight for nutrients, water, and sunlight. When that happens, they focus on surviving rather than producing fruit. You might notice that the center of your patch starts looking thick with leaves, but has very few flowers. The outer plants might even produce small berries, while the inner ones make only foliage. This crowding effect limits airflow too, which makes disease more likely and further stresses the plants. In short, when strawberries don't have enough breathing room, they grow leaves, not berries. The good news is that this is one of the easiest problems to fix. Every early spring, before the plants begin vigorous new growth, take some time to thin out your patch. Remove any old, weak, or overcrowded plants, keeping only the healthiest ones. Aim to leave about 12 to 18 inches of space between plants in rows, or around a foot apart in containers or raised beds. That spacing ensures each one gets enough light and air circulation. You should also manage runners throughout the growing season. It's fine to let a few roots if you want to renew your bed, but don't let them take over. Simply snip off extra runners near their base as they appear. This stops them from drawing energy away from fruit production. The parent plant will then use its energy to make more flowers and stronger fruit instead. If your strawberry bed is already very crowded, consider lifting and replanting the healthiest plants in fresh soil elsewhere. A rejuvenated patch with proper spacing will bounce back quickly. After thinning and trimming, water well and add a light layer of mulch to keep moisture even. Within weeks, you'll notice the plants producing more blossoms and fewer leaves. It's proof that when each strawberry has the space it needs, it can focus on what it does best, growing sweet, juicy berries instead of endless greenery. If your strawberries are growing in containers, pots, or hanging baskets, root-bound conditions might be the reason you're seeing more leaves than berries. When roots run out of space, they begin to circle around the inside of the pot, forming a dense, tangled mass. That limits their ability to take up water and nutrients efficiently. The plant responds by sending energy upward into leaves rather than flowers because it's under stress. You can usually spot a root-bound strawberry by a few telltale signs. The soil dries out faster than usual, water runs straight through without soaking in, and the plant wilts quickly after watering. When you lift the pot or slide the plant out, you'll see roots tightly packed and often white or pale. That's a clear signal that it's time for a transplant. To fix this, gently remove the plant from its pot and loosen the outer layer of roots with your fingers. If they're extremely tight, you can make a few light cuts across the root ball with a clean knife to help them spread. Then move the plant into a slightly larger container with fresh, well-draining soil. Choose a pot that's at least 2 inches wider than the old one and has drainage holes at the bottom. Use a high-quality potting mix that contains compost, perlite, or coconut coir. These materials keep the soil light and airy, giving roots the oxygen they need to grow deeper and stronger. Avoid reusing compacted or exhausted soil, since it can hold too much moisture and cause root rot. After transplanting, water thoroughly to help settle the soil, but avoid soaking. Place the pot in a sunny location where it can receive 6 to 8 hours of direct light each day. Within a few weeks, the plant should start producing new growth that looks balanced, with both healthy leaves and flower clusters. For long-term success, plan to refresh the soil every year or two, even if the plants stay in the same pot. Container plants simply can't recycle nutrients as efficiently as those in the ground. Keeping their roots healthy and free to grow is one of the easiest ways to encourage consistent fruiting. Healthy roots lead to a balanced plant, and balanced plants make berries, not just leaves. Even if your strawberry plants are healthy and full of blossoms, poor pollination can lead to small, misshapen, or missing fruit. Each strawberry flower needs pollen to be transferred from its male parts to its female parts for a berry to form. If this process doesn't happen fully, the flower either fails to develop fruit or makes a few tiny, uneven berries that never ripen properly. The plant will then continue pushing out more leaves instead of focusing on those incomplete fruits. In home gardens, poor pollination often happens when there are too few pollinators around. Bees, butterflies, and hoverflies play a huge role in strawberry production. Wind can help a little, but insect activity is what ensures complete pollination. If your plants are inside a greenhouse, on a balcony, or in a still corner of the yard, flowers may not be visited often enough. You can encourage better pollination in a few simple ways. First, plant different varieties of strawberries close together. Cross-pollination improves yield and berry quality, even though most strawberries can self-pollinate. Next, attract more pollinators by planting companion flowers nearby, such as lavender, marigold, or borage. These plants draw bees to your garden naturally. Avoid using pesticides during bloom time, as they can harm or repel those beneficial insects. If you grow indoors or in an enclosed space, hand pollination works surprisingly well. Use a small paintbrush or cotton swab to gently transfer pollen from one flower to another. You can also lightly tap or shake the flowers during the warm part of the day when pollen is most active. A few minutes every couple of days while the plants are flowering can make a big difference. Good airflow also helps. It moves pollen around and keeps flowers dry, which prevents fungal issues that can damage blossoms before pollination happens. Position pots where they get a gentle breeze, or use a small fan indoors to mimic natural airflow. Once pollination improves, you'll start to see more consistent berry formation and better shaped fruit. The key is to remember that flowers are the plant's opportunity to reproduce. If those flowers don't get properly pollinated, the plant assumes it failed and keeps growing leaves instead. Solve the pollination issue, and your strawberries will reward you with fuller, juicier harvests. Water might seem simple, but it's one of the biggest factors behind leafy, low-fruiting strawberry plants. When watering is inconsistent, either too much or too little, the plant's natural rhythm gets disrupted. Strawberries have shallow roots, so they react quickly to changes in moisture. If the soil swings between being soaked and dry, the plant focuses on protecting itself by growing more leaves instead of producing fruit. Overwatering is one of the most common issues. Constantly wet soil cuts off oxygen to the roots and can lead to root rot. When that happens, the plant becomes stressed, and stress signals it to produce survival foliage. You'll often see soft, darkened roots, pale leaves, and very few flowers. On the other hand, underwatering causes the opposite problem. Dry soil makes the plant shut down fruiting altogether to conserve water. It will send energy into producing thicker leaves to shade itself and reduce evaporation. The solution is to keep the soil evenly moist. Strawberries do best with about 1 to 2 inches of water per week, depending on your weather and soil type. Rather than watering lightly every day, it's better to water deeply and less often, so the roots grow down instead of staying near the surface. You can check moisture by sticking your finger an inch or two into the soil. If it feels dry at that depth, it's time to water. Mulching makes a huge difference too. A 2-inch layer of straw, pine needles, or shredded leaves helps keep moisture stable and prevents rapid drying in hot weather. It also protects fruit from splashing soil, which can spread disease. If you're using drip irrigation, run it slowly for longer periods to soak the root zone evenly. For container plants, check drainage holes to ensure excess water can escape. Standing water at the bottom of pots is one of the fastest ways to cause root stress. Using a light, well-draining potting mix also helps prevent soggy conditions. Once watering is consistent, strawberry plants can focus their energy where it belongs, on flowering and fruiting. You'll see healthier blooms, stronger crowns, and fewer signs of leaf stress. Balanced watering keeps the entire system stable, which is exactly what strawberries need to produce the juicy harvest you're after. Not all strawberries thrive in every climate, and growing the wrong type for your conditions can lead to a bed full of leaves but very few berries. Strawberries are sensitive to both temperature and day length. When those factors aren't right, the plant's internal clock stays stuck in a growth phase, instead of switching to flowering and fruiting. There are 3 main types of strawberries. June-bearing varieties produce one big crop each year, usually in late spring or early summer. They rely on cool weather and specific daylight hours to set buds. In warm regions, they can struggle because high heat pushes them into vegetative growth instead of flower production. Ever-bearing and day-neutral varieties, on the other hand, produce multiple smaller harvests through the season and are better suited to warmer or variable climates. If you live in a region with hot summers or mild winters, day-neutral types like Albion or Seascape usually perform best. They're less sensitive to daylight length and will continue to flower as long as conditions are comfortable. In cooler northern areas, June-bearing types such as Honeoy or Jewel may yield better results since they can handle a defined winter chill. Matching your variety to your climate ensures the plant's natural rhythm aligns with your growing season. Sunlight is just as important. Strawberries need at least 6 to 8 hours of full sun every day. Less than that, and the plant will compensate by growing extra leaves to capture more light. That extra leaf growth drains the energy that would otherwise go into producing fruit. If your garden is shaded for part of the day, try moving containers to a brighter spot or trimming nearby foliage to open up light. Extreme heat can also stress plants into focusing on foliage. During hot spells, provide light shade in the afternoon using row covers or shade cloth. This prevents flower buds from aborting before they can develop. Choosing a variety that suits your location and giving it enough sunlight makes a huge difference. The right match means your plants don't have to fight their environment. They can put their energy into doing what they're meant to do, producing bowl after bowl of sweet red strawberries instead of endless green leaves. Sometimes your strawberry plants might look leafy because they're under quiet stress from pests, disease, or poor soil conditions. When a plant feels threatened, it goes into defense mode. Instead of producing fruit, it uses its resources to grow more leaves and stems, trying to recover and survive. The result looks like strong growth, but it's really a sign of imbalance. Common culprits include root and crown diseases such as verticillium wilt or root rot, which limit nutrient uptake. Above-ground pests like aphids, spider mites, and leafhoppers also drain the plant's energy. You might notice distorted leaves, sticky residue, or small insects on the undersides of leaves. While these problems don't always kill the plant outright, they weaken it enough that fruiting slows or stops altogether. Compacted or poorly draining soil can make things worse. When roots sit in heavy, soggy soil, oxygen levels drop, and beneficial microbes decline. This creates an environment where pathogens thrive. Even in raised beds, overwatering or dense soil mixes can trigger these issues. The same goes for overheated conditions, where the plant continually produces new leaves to shade itself rather than forming fruit. To fix this, start by checking the base of your plants. Look for any soft, darkened crowns or roots that smell sour. Those should be removed right away. If you find pests, gently wash the leaves with water or apply a mild insecticidal soap that's safe for edible plants. For fungal issues, trim infected parts and improve airflow by spacing plants properly and avoiding overhead watering. Healthy soil is your best long-term defense. Add compost to improve drainage and structure, and avoid stepping in the bed, which compacts soil and crushes root spaces. Rotate your strawberry patch every few years to new soil if possible, since many diseases linger in the ground. Once the plants recover from stress, they'll naturally redirect their energy back into fruiting. Leaves will look balanced again, and flowers will begin forming more reliably. Keeping your growing environment healthy, clean, and well aerated gives your strawberries the best chance to thrive and produce fruit season after season. Fungal diseases can be sneaky, and one of the most damaging for strawberries is Anthracnose. It often strikes during warm, wet weather and can destroy flowers before they ever have the chance to form fruit. To the untrained eye, it just looks like the plant is putting out new leaves instead of berries. In reality, the flowers are dying off early, and the plant is trying to recover by pushing fresh foliage. Anthracnose usually begins as small, dark spots on leaves, stems, or runners. In humid conditions, those spots expand and turn into soft, sunken lesions that can eventually reach the crowns and fruit. When blossoms are infected, they shrivel up or turn brown at the tips. The disease spreads quickly through splashing water or contaminated tools, especially in crowded plantings with poor airflow. Once a plant is infected, it's difficult to reverse completely, but you can stop it from spreading. First, remove any infected leaves, fruit, or stems and discard them away from your garden area. Don't compost infected material, as the spores can survive and reappear later. Avoid overhead watering, which splashes the spores around. Instead, water at the base of the plant early in the day, so the leaves have time to dry before nightfall. Air circulation is another key factor. Make sure your strawberries are spaced properly and that weeds or runners aren't choking the airflow. Even a light breeze between plants helps keep humidity down, making it harder for fungus to thrive. A clean, open strawberry bed is far less likely to suffer repeated infections. For persistent issues, applying an approved fungicide labeled for strawberries can help control outbreaks. Organic gardeners often prefer copper-based treatments or biological fungicides that contain beneficial microbes to outcompete the disease. Always follow label instructions carefully and apply before or just after rain when conditions favor fungal growth. Once Anthracnose is under control, the difference is noticeable. Flowers start to hold, new growth looks healthy, and berries return to forming normally. The key is prevention and maintenance, keeping the environment dry on top and well ventilated and clean underneath. That simple routine can save you from losing an entire season of fruit to one stubborn fungus. Now for the bonus tip that I promised you at the beginning. The thing is that even with perfect care, strawberry plants don't stay productive forever. After about 3 to 4 years, their vigor naturally declines. You'll notice smaller berries, more runners, and fewer flowers each season. The plant spends most of its energy growing leaves instead of fruit because its crown and root system are aging. It's a normal part of the strawberry life cycle. The best way to keep your harvest strong is to refresh your patch regularly. During the 3rd or 4th year, select a few of your healthiest runners from younger plants and let them root in small pots or open spaces nearby. These runners are essentially clones of your best producers, and once they've grown their own roots, they can replace the older plants in your bed. This approach keeps your strawberry patch young and productive without having to start completely from scratch. You can gradually rotate new plants into old spots, ensuring continuous fruiting every season. If you're growing in containers, simply transplant new starts into fresh soil once the old ones begin to slow down. Replacing aging plants also helps break disease cycles that can build up over time in the soil or on the crowns. With a little planning, you'll always have vigorous, fruit-heavy plants ready to take over when the older ones fade. It's like giving your garden a gentle reset every few years. And the reward is worth it. More energy goes into making berries, not leaves. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more gardening tips, and check out our other videos on growing a better garden. Remember, even small changes, like adjusting soil balance, spacing plants, or refreshing your patch, can turn a leafy strawberry bed into a thriving one packed with fruit. Stay patient, keep learning, and you'll be harvesting juicy, homegrown strawberries before you know it.